I never realized just how bad things were until one day a relative who married into our family said, "I always knew there was something wrong with Marlene Faye. I just didn't know what it was." In this episode, I'll talk about how setting limits is essential to being a loving person. The specific yogic and Buddhist principle that helps us balance compassion for others with respect for ourselves. And I'll fill you in a bit about what was wrong with Marlene Faye. It's all about the boundaries, baby. I'd appreciate you taking some time after you listen to subscribe, rate, and review my work on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your listen on. I'm Dr. Juko Holiday. Let's get comfortable being human together. Enmeshment is the opposite of having a healthy boundary with someone. It's a concept in psychology and psychotherapy introduced by Salvador Minuchin to describe families where a lack of healthy personal boundaries and over-concern and involvement with others leads to a loss of autonomy and healthy development. An emotional fusion happens. Psyches get entangled, and unhealthy patterns for later relationships develop. I was trying to work all this out in therapy, again, in my late 30s, and had just done that awful thing you have to do when you go to a new therapist and tell your whole story over again. And when I told him about my past and truthfully reported some of my self-destructive behaviors, he cut me off mid-sentence and indicated I should stop talking by holding his finger to his lips. Boundaries. Boundaries. It's clear you really don't have any. For you, it's all about the boundaries, baby. He sat back in his chair, all satisfied. Our time was up. I found another therapist, even though it meant doing that awful thing of telling my whole story all over again. Boundaries. I was learning, and I still am, because this is a lifelong practice. Just a heads up, I believe deeply that stories are medicine. But medicine has to be dispensed at the right time, in the right amount, to the right person. My work, frankly, addresses childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, scenarios involving people living with severe mental illness, and other themes that might not be healing for you right now. I also talk about joy, liberation, and redemption, but if the other stuff leaves you too charged up, these stories will be here if and when it feels like a good time to listen. So, about Marlene Fei. She was the person my birth mother, Cecilia, had prayed would show up, though a critical part of her prayers weren't answered in the affirmative. Cecilia wrote this prayer in a journal entry written before we met when I was 18. Please, God, let her have a family. Let them be good people. And please don't let them be depressed. Marlene Fei was my adoptive mother. She rescued me from the children's home and made me her daughter. She was my refuge against my father's frequent verbal tirades, and she let me stay home from school when she knew I wasn't really sick. She was affectionate, taught me to hula hoop, bolo bat, do 500-piece jigsaw puzzles, and play jacks. She taught me how to thread a sewing machine and to keep extra napkins from fast food joints in my glove box. She cried when I left home for the first time at 16 and told me to leave Dayton, Ohio for good so I could find a decent job when I was 25. I know someone else gave birth to me, but she was my mother. A woman with severe mental illness gave birth to me, and a different woman with severe mental illness raised me. Of course, we had to tell the children's home all about your mama's nerve problems, Michael L. Johnson, my dad, told me. That's what my family and a lot of other Black families called mental illness. A white doctor once really demeaned and shamed Marlene Fei for saying she took nerve pills when he asked her if she was on any medications. There were times she was well and stable. Oh, yeah. And despite how raggedy and sad things got, we did laugh a lot. Every Sunday, Michael L. Johnson, Marlene Faye, and I would take a long car ride way out Route 35 to the Dairy Queen in New Lebanon, Ohio. We'd load up in our 1978 cream-colored Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme with a burgundy rag top and pinstripes painted on the side. Daddy would play the OJs on the 8-track tape deck while we went for our ice cream. There was a place on the interior car roof where my dad's brimmed hat had worn out the fabric from him bobbing his head back and forth to the music over the years. There was a little hill on the 2-lane highway. He'd speed up when we went over it. I'd feel butterflies in my tummy, and we'd all laugh. Every Friday, we went to Judd's Steakhouse, and I would order a chopsteak well done with steak fries, please. It was on the west side of Dayton on Germantown Avenue, or was it Gettysburg? All those places are gone now, long gone. When I was a senior in high school, we had these scrapbooks that we could buy from Jostens, the American manufacturer of memorabilia. They had pages to fill in, places to put movie ticket stubs, and to write down the current price for a gallon of gas and a pair of jeans. One page was dedicated to you and your best friend. I put my senior photo on the top of the page and Marlene Faye's on the bottom. I listed the reason for our friendship as being good at getting in fights and making up after. Her diagnosis was bipolar disorder, but her medication and behavior makes me think it was more like schizoaffective disorder. She lived with psychosis for sure, and anger, and a lot of sadness. When she would get real mad, there would be a look that twisted her face into something that didn't seem like her own. I even had a name for it, the mean eye. Stop giving me the mean eye. It always made me cry to see her face change that way. And something about my pleading sometimes made her laugh. I would laugh if she laughed, but I could also feel my heart beating fast in my chest. When she didn't laugh, the mean eye was a precursor to out-of-control yelling or being beaten with a long plastic shoehorn she kept in the corner of her bedroom, the kind that could reach all the way down to your feet while you were sitting straight up in a chair. Once, I tried to run away and hide behind the curtains in the living room when she went for her shoehorn. She came after me. We struggled and almost pulled her white crushed velvet drapes clean off the wall in the process. I remember being taller than her that time, which might have been the last time I got the shoehorn, but it wasn't the last time I got the mean eye. I was what is called in psychological parlance a parentified child. I could tell before anyone else if she was off her meds, and I have memories of looking up at her to ask, "Mommy, did you take your medicine?" when she started talking or acting funny. She was only 5'3", and sometimes it just doesn't seem possible that I was so little and wound up being responsible for such big things. She was hospitalized 3 or 4 times when I was growing up. It probably should have been more. She had electroshock treatments when I was in middle school. Things were less chaotic after that, but the way that treatment was dispensed back then, that peace came at a high price. The mean eye dissolved into this frightened, wide-eyed look that only went away when she slept. She spent a lot of time after that sitting in the living room chair in her nightgown, curtains drawn, unbathed, sometimes deep in an internal conversation with herself that made her shake her head back and forth and clench her jaw. When the conversation stopped, she'd look down and hold her chin in her hands. She wore a sleeping cap on her head all day long. It was always kind of cocked to the side, slipping off, barely holding on to her head and in no way serving any intended function. Her hair was wild, uncombed. She didn't always brush her teeth. They were all pulled out sometime in her early 50s. I never realized just how bad things were until one day a relative who married into our family said, "I always knew there was something wrong with Marlene Faye. I just didn't know what it was." When I was 20, she had a real bad spell. She wasn't hearing voices that time, but thought my father was trying to kill her. I found her pacing in the living room, holding a copy of her will that we normally kept in the family Bible on the coffee table. She was convinced that the line that read, "In the event of my death," was part of a plot he'd put together with other people to hunt her down and take her out. She had a bag packed and begged me to take her to the women's shelter. I didn't know what to do. I put her in the car, and the next thing I know, I'm driving out Route 35 to the Dairy Queen. It made sense. It was the only thing I could think to do at the time. It had been a long time since we'd been there, and I couldn't even remember why or exactly when we'd stopped going. I was trying to drive back into the past, to times when things weren't so bad. She was in the passenger seat, ranting and panicked. "Why are we going to get ice cream? We need to go get help." Her eyes were darting around. She was terrified. When we got there, the Dairy Queen was boarded up. She begged me not to take her to the hospital, to believe that her life was in danger. She was being hunted down, and to not betray her. He wasn't trying to kill her. He loved her as much as I did, and he was also trapped as much as I was by that messed up but best love we could manage. We were all we had. I talked her down that day, talked her back on her meds that night. It was a lot of work, but I kept her out of St. Elizabeth's that summer. Fall came. I went back to Brown University for my sophomore year. By Thanksgiving, I was in the hospital in a locked ward myself. There's clearly a lot to take from this story and integrate here, and boundaries are a really big topic. The child I was back then didn't have the power to say yes or no, or this is not okay. But the adult I am now can. For anyone listening to this who needs the reminder, you get to determine what is okay and not okay with you. Both Buddhism and yoga have a precept about being truthful and not lying. In yoga, it's called satya. And satya is a tool we can use to create really sound boundaries. Because betraying our boundaries is a kind of soul-level lie that really disrupts our ability to authentically connect with others and to give and receive love. We think we're being nice, but we're not. Good boundaries don't cause harm. They prevent it. It can feel risky to practice satya and say, no thanks, right there. That's enough. Please stop. But if we let resentment about our boundaries being disrespected fester, we wind up reacting from a compromised, burned out, and stressed out place. Our options get limited by a dysregulated nervous system. Our fight, flight, or feign reactions take over. We might blow up, fall into avoidance, or stay locked up in that awful prison of just be nice and pretend everything is okay. You can be truthful about your needs and limitations, and it's okay to reset or remove yourself from relationships where your boundaries aren't honored. Boundaries aren't rigid walls without gates to allow love in and out. They give us the space and grace we need to breathe, to be, and to allow our wounds to heal. They nurture our capacity to increase our resilience and presence, and they are essential to creating a livable, regulated, blessed human life. This is the part of my podcast where I answer your questions and entertain your comments about this material. You can go to my Anchor.fm profile page and click on the message button to leave me a voice message or reach out to any of my social media channels. Being human can get confusing, so just ask you go for insights from a fellow flawed and fabulous soul. I have this really potent question from Irene, who asks, what steps do you recommend for a shy/anxious person who wants to increase the visibility of their care and compassion toward others in their community? The first thing I get curious about is what it feels like, Irene, to position yourself at the center of the community you care for. How could you make caring for yourself more visible, active, and frame it as a really important part of this process? Now, the emotion of fear, which is the foundation of anxiety, gives us really valuable information. There's a tender spot there that feels vulnerable, and it's important to respect the information you're getting from it. It's that tender spot that's also the source of your desire to care deeply for those around you and to make sure that they see your compassion and your caring. Also, you get to define how you express yourself in this domain 100%. Caring and compassion, putting our empathy into action, looks different for you than it does for anyone else. This is such a great question because it's a step in the process of really clarifying your personal dharma, your calling in this world. There's a seed there in your heart that's sprouting, and what it grows into is unique to you. And it starts with tending lovingly to your own soil first. If you see it for yourself, the rest of us will witness it with you. Thank you so much, Irene. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, to offer this question, and I'm grateful to be part of the community you care for. I do a lot of things. You can go to jucoholiday.com to find out about my in-person yoga trainings and workshops happening at Ease Mountain Yoga here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, not too far from San Jose and the San Francisco Bay. I'm elated to be on the faculty of 1440 Multiversity, and am leading a retreat for women of color in August of 2020. It is called To Bless Our Own Waters, Reflections on Trauma, Compassion, Boundaries, and Forgiveness. You can visit jucoholiday.com/2020 retreat to leave me your email and get notified when registration opens. I am a conservationist, a licensed timber operator, which is a new development, and a Ronan Institute research scholar in the disciplines of psychology and ecology. Please visit redwoodlove.org to find out about the Care Forest Project and how you can offset your environmental impact for as little as $7 a month and move from climate crisis overwhelm to action. So, if compassion for all living beings is a spiritual ideal, what do boundaries look like when others behave in ways that are truly awful? What does it look like when our own behavior has been hurtful and harmful? Next time, we extend our conversation about compassion and boundaries into an exploration of forgiveness. I publish longer blessing sessions every other Friday with occasional bonus material sprinkled in between, so please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. I'm Dr. Juco Holiday, so happy to have your company as we work to get comfortable being human together. Go shine bright